Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. We're just going to see who's on and we're just going to give it a few minutes to see who's online. And that's it. Right, that's it. Now I can see what I'm doing now. So just wait for people to come online and then we will take it from there really. I think my clock is fast. Let's see. Good evening, Peter Hampton, and welcome to the stream. I'm just waiting to see who's around. And hello, Thomas McInnes. I hope I said that right. And I hope you're well, and I am fine, thank you. And hello, Graham, Alex. Welcome to the stream. It's nice for you guys to join me tonight. I don't think it could turn out to be quite a long stream. We'll soon find out. Southern Train Girl. Hi, Susanna. And so hi to you too. Oh, good. Thank you. Because even people have... Good evening, Graham, Alex. Welcome to the stream. People have issues pronouncing my name, so they ask me how you say it. So sometimes it's like, did I say it right? So I like to try and get it right. Don't want to offend anybody. But yes, today we're going to be talking about DCC controllers. For those of you that are interested, so that's what we're going to be talking about. But we're going to sort of give it till a few more minutes, and then we can start because we're supposed to start at 8 o'clock. I just thought I'd just give people a chance just to get online. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Peter. Is anyone going to Wally in November? I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't think so on my part. I think I'm scheduled to work that time because my holidays aren't around that sort of time. So it really depends on whether or not I've actually got the weekend off to be able to go to Wally. Good evening, Richard, over at New Junction, and welcome to the stream this evening. Yeah, so it's pretty debatable. I don't really know, to be honest. It might be a bit too much for me, to be honest. I've never been to Wally before. It's quite big. It can be quite intense, so I've been told. Thomas McInnes. Yeah, I am trans. I've been trans for a long time, and I'm not ashamed of who I am. So yeah, I am who I am, and people love it or they hate it, and the rest of it. I don't mind saying who I am and what I'm about. And aloha to David Jones. Oh, you're going to Wally, Richard. Oh, that's great. Well, that's probably down the road anyway for you, isn't it? And hi, Nigel. Welcome to the stream. And yes, I thought it could be fun to meet up with others from it. Oh, okay. Well, good evening from Blighty to Denmark then, Peter. I guess we should start with the stream, and today is all about power and control really, and it's to do with DCC controllers and things like that. And I'm going to talk about my experiences with them and also my choices for what I have chosen or not have chosen. And this is not intended to offend anybody who has any of the said controllers that I didn't choose. And so, thank you, Thomas. And so it's all about personal choice and what works for your layout and what your requirements are. So, like I said, I don't want to disrespect anybody or offend anybody if I say anything out of turn about any of these controllers or why I've chosen some and not others. I've actually got 4 to talk about today. And I guess I should start from the beginning. And I'm going to start with this one. And this is a Morley Vector. And this is my old DC controller, and this has come from Behringer, that I bought from Behringer, and it is a fantastic controller, and it's solely an analog controller. So for any of you analog out there, this is a really good controller to get because it's pretty well priced, and you get control over 2 trains. You also get 2 handsets, and you also get a CDU and an auxiliary and track power on the back, which is right there, which you just screw it all into. And this particular controller is still going to be remaining in use at Ringwood South. I'm still going to be using this on this particular layout, and I'll tell you why later on. Just remind me, by the way, because I'm a bit of a dick sometimes. I'm quite forgetful. The next one I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about this. This is a Batman. Hello, Scrapline Model I. Welcome to the stream. This is a Batman Easy Command DCC controller, and this controller, I have to say, I got this as part of the Permanent Way set, and it came. I didn't actually pay for this one. This one came actually part of the set, and it was supposed to be used as my test sort of DCC controller. And I have to say that it does exactly what it says on the tin, and you can't really fault this. It's a very basic DCC controller, but all what it claims to do, it does, and it does very well. It can take up to, I mean, it is limited, but at the end of the day, it depends on your needs. And if you have a very small layout and it's nothing overly complicated and you just wanted something basic that isn't going to cost the earth, this is quite good because you can control 9 locos on here, and you can actually control an analog loco. It's easy to program. It's just got a simple dial on it. There's no sort of fancy gimmicks to it. You can actually connect this to the internet to actually update it. You can actually, this one actually is the power, and this one actually connects to the track. So it's very, very simple. And I actually like it. I've used this a few times, and the dial is actually quite firm, and so you get quite good feedback. And I have to say, this has got the edge on some of the better ones for one simple reason, and one simple reason alone. And if you look on the back of this thing, there's actually an on-off switch on this, which I think is fantastic, because a lot of the new ones that I can see don't have a simple on-off switch, so you always have to switch it off at the plug, which I find quite frustrating that that you just have to unplug it every time you want to switch it off. Unless you've got one of those plugs with just the switch on the side, you could just switch it off from the switch. But there's no actual hello Anthony, and welcome to the stream. So it's a very, very simple basic. It doesn't, and even the functions, it only does, it doesn't, it's very limited in its functions. I think it does 10 functions. So if you've got DCC decoders with 20 or even 12, you are going to miss out. But for a basic DCC controller, I don't think you can really go too far wrong with this. I mean, it's really, really pretty good going. The next controller I wanted to talk about is, actually I'm going to plug it in because I need to plug this in. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do, so I'll show it to you first how it is. Right. I want to talk to you about my Homebe Elite. Now, the Homebe Elite, I have to say, was not on my radar at all, to be truthful. Alan saw that I'd gone through a bad time last year with all my moving and how stressed I was, and he wanted to do something nice for me, and he offered me this Elite, and he gave it to me, and I'm entirely, I'm really, really grateful for him for doing that for me, and it was a fantastic gift, and he was the one that introduced me to DCC and DCC sound and all the rest of it. Unfortunately, this particular unit has not really lived up to his generosity, and I'm really, really unimpressed, to be honest with you, with the endless frustrations that I've had with this. But this isn't to say that it's a bad unit, because I think it may vary. There's lots of people out there who own a Hornby Elite and perfectly happy with it, and as long as you're happy with it, then that's all that matters at the end of the day. But for me, this was causing me endless frustration, and I tried to persist and I tried to persist with it, and I've ended up getting another controller because it was just driving me up the wall. Hello, Stuart Barnard, and welcome to the stream. Now, the thing is, it's, if I'm being honest, I wasn't, this, like I said, this wasn't on my radar. In fact, the irony was all the four that I'm showing you, apart from the Vector was the only one that I actually bought myself. The other three have come about as circumstances have changed in some ways, and I'll get onto that. So what you get with the Hornby Elite is you get this unit, and it's an all-in-one unit, and in some ways it's good and in other ways it's bad. And the thing is, you get that's the track that goes to the track. These two go to the programming track, and then you've got the express link and the USB, and then you've got the booster and the auxiliary power on the end. So you get all of this on one unit. The problem is with this, and it's not really suited to my layout at all, because this isn't really a mobile controller, and my layout is an end-to-end, and it really is, I think personally, suitable more for a circuit layout if you own a circuit layout. And my test track over the far side is basically what this is going to be used for from now on. It's going to be used, I'm not getting rid of it, I'm not demoting, well, I suppose it is being demoted, but it's been put to more better use for it, in other words, because really, like I said, it's not really mobile enough. That's the biggest thing. I mean, you look at my hands and you see me, I mean, you have to walk around, but it's really quite cumbersome. And the thing is, if you've got your programming track and your track and everything else plugged into the back of this thing, you're going to have numerous cables coming out of here, and it's just really, really not mobile enough. So it really is more suited to a circuit layout as opposed to an end-to-end layout like I have here. I'm going to plug it in, and then I'm going to show you some other bits and pieces with it. Now, Richard over at New Junction earlier today put up a video comparing a Prodigy Express and his Hornby Select, and I have that's my third one, which my fourth one that I'm going to show you and talk to you about. And hello, Vintage 80s Loft Model Railway, welcome to the stream. I'm trying to keep up to date with everybody, and he was basically explaining a similar sort of issue with the Select, that it is quite cumbersome. And I also agree with him with the buttons, they're also pretty cumbersome as well. Also, the biggest problem I find with this is these two buttons do everything pretty much, apart from the function buttons there, because it goes left, it goes right, it goes up, it goes down, and you press it in. And what I found is when I'm programming trains, I found that I've inadvertently turned dials and turned numbers and changed CVs inadvertently and gone into different menus inadvertently, because these buttons are on like a micro switch and they're all linked. And I've ended up reprogramming trains incorrectly because of it, and it's just caused no end of frustration. Also, it has an on-off button on here which doesn't work, because it basically, you can't switch the unit off or on, so there's no real point to it. You still have to switch it off from the mains. Also, this semicircle here, hello GWI Hereford, this semicircle here in the middle dictates your speed, but there's no actual speed indicator on there, so it doesn't tell you whether you're doing 1 mile an hour, whether you're doing 100 or whatever. So it's not really overly precise. But like I said, and I think, to be honest with you, this sort of explains the problem with the Elite that I think. Now, somebody said to me that the Hornby Elite is supposed to be pretty easy to use. This is the handbook for it, and you can see how thick it is. And you just have to open it to see. There's a flow chart of all the tables and menus, and um, you know, it just became, you could quite easily get bogged down in it. It's not very intuitive. I mean, I have to say, I picked it up out of the box when I took it out the first time round, and I absolutely loved it. But it wasn't very intuitive. You couldn't just sort of pick it up and go, okay, let's get on with it and let's do that. That clearly does that. That clearly does that. It really wasn't as intuitive as I'd hoped. I really had to read the manual for it and really get into it to learn a bit more about it. Um, and it is quite expensive as well. Hello, Valeria. Um, and it is quite expensive. I looked on the Hornby sorry, the Amazon website, and the reason why I looked on the Amazon website because I bought my Prodigy from there, and currently, it's on £205.56 for Hornby Elite, as opposed to 264, which is what the original price is. So they've got it down at a sale price for 205 on Amazon tonight, and I just think, for what it is, I have to say it's a bit more expensive than what I'd like to pay for what it is, to be honest. And like I said, I'm not knocking it. There's lots of people who are perfectly happy with the Elite, but it really just doesn't. Um, Hello, Napton Hill Model Railway. You know, for me, it doesn't really. It's been good and it has its uses, and I think it's suited, like I said, to a circuit layout. But for an end-to-end layout, I don't think it's really suitable, and I think there's probably better systems out there for that sort of money. So before I go on to the one I eventually bought, which you guys now know, I wanted to talk about. Let me just mention also. So I don't want to do Hornby a disservice here. You can also get Railmaster for the Hornby Elite, and you can also run it from the phone if you download the app. But if you download the app, you've got to pay for it. You have to buy this disc to download the. Hello, Kev Bygrave, welcome to the stream. So you have to buy this disc as well. So these are all extras on top of the £205 if you get it at a sale price that you have to buy. And even so, this Railmaster isn't even the full version. So you have to pay to upgrade it to get the extra pieces if you want that. And also, the controller that you use from your phone with Hornby also isn't fully featured as well. I don't think you get a full list of functions. I think you get a choice of up to 6 or something like that, which is really kind of ridiculous, to be honest, considering today's day and age. I don't know, like I said, they might have updated the software, in which case you might be able to use more functions. And the other thing which leads me on is the other thing that leads me on to is that when I updated my Hornby Elite, the Hornby Elite was such a pain to upgrade the firmware. It wasn't the case of you put it into your computer, it says device recognised, there's an update waiting for you, like a lot of things, and it just downloads it straight like that. And with the Hornby, you had to go to their website, and then you had to go, and there was a lot of messing around, which at one point I thought I'd actually broken. Hello, Scott Malcolm, welcome to the stream. And I actually thought at one point I broke it, and as you guys well know. So it has been very much a source of frustration for me, but I've tried to persist with it. God knows, Alan and I have tried to persist with the Hornby Elite, but it really, really was driving me absolutely bananas. And like I said, it will still be kept. It won't be sold on or anything. It'll still be kept. I'll put it on use onto the test track, which I think it'll be much better suited to. Now, like I said, before I go to the Prodigy Express, I wanted to talk about some of the other controllers that I had in consideration. I had, like I said, again, yeah, Richard. So let me talk about some of the other controllers I had, and some I dismissed outright, and some I took great care in my thought process. And like I said, if you own any of these controllers, don't take it as a slight, or I don't want to offend anybody or whatever, because it's not really meant to. It's just my own personal views of them, and these were kind of like what I call deal breakers. You know, these are the things that really made me think, no, I definitely can't live with that, and I just couldn't put up with that. Um, Batman Dynamis, was one that was one of the first ones that I just didn't want to know. And I don't mean it like I said in a horrible sense, but for me, I know people have had issues in terms of again, it's battery life, um, also that poor connection and the infrared. Hello, Cheeky Tech, welcome to the stream. And some people had issues with infrared, and so I read some of these, and I thought I don't really want to take that risk, and so I decided against that. And I thought, well, it's not really for me, and so I decided against that. I had a look at the ecosystem as well, and the ecosystem again was more all singing, all dancing, um, and it was all kind of a bit, you know, it wasn't a bit too much for me and my price range. To be perfectly honest, it's a very good controller, but for my layout, it was just a bit too overkill. In all fairness. Um, I then looked at the Digitrains because that was going to be my original choice. My original choice when I first started out this kind of DCC controller hunting, my Digitrains was going to be my choice. And the reason why I was going to choose that was because Dave over at Cottesmore put up a video earlier about his Dynamis. Hopefully he's still talking to me after I just said I wouldn't buy one. Um, Basically, he put up and he said you sort of have to try the various different controllers to see what you're happy with, and there's a lot of truth in that. Because at my club in Alton, when I used to go there, we used to have a Digitrax system. Yeah, it's Digitrax, and I got used to that, and I was perfectly happy with it. And that was the system I was originally going to go with. But then what happened was their starter set is called you get a Zephyr. And for those of you who don't know what the Zephyr is, basically the Zephyr is more or less a similar sort of shape and style to the Elite. It's not, it doesn't look like an Elite, and it's actually better than the Elite, but it's actual, and what I'm talking about is about its actually dimensions and its shape. And after my experiences with this, the starter set for the Digitrax system is the Zephyr, which is, like I said, one of these type of boxes, and that really put me off. So I decided, and that's why I decided against the Digitrax system. And if I'd gone down the controller, the handheld controller route, it was going to cost over £300. So I thought to myself, well, let me see what else is out there. And hello, Nick Smith. Thank you for joining and welcome to the stream. And so I've decided. So what happened is I thought I should have a look at the NCE and the Prodigy Gauge Master systems because I hadn't really investigated them enough. I hadn't really spoken to anybody really about them on how good they were and or whether they were any good or not. And as I got talking to people, I found out that a lot of people were recommending me the NCE. But the thing that drew me to the Prodigy was the fact that this is a small layout and it hasn't got many. I don't run many trains at any one time. I can only really run one at a time or two at a time, maybe, but pretty much one at a time. So when looking at DCC controllers, I was looking at the price, I was looking at the ampage, value for money, that kind of thing. And the ampage is a big deal in terms of price. So the more amps you get and the more features you get, the more you pay, which is fair enough. However, for me, I have a small layout, so I didn't really need something with a load of ampage, excessive ampage, if you like, that could run, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trains at any one time or whatever, because I'd just be wasting it. I wouldn't really be making any kind of, I won't get anything out of it. I won't get any bonus out of it. So it wasn't really worth spending the extra money. So that's why I decided to go with the Prodigy. and I'll show you the Prodigy because it's actually switched on at the minute. So this is the Prodigy Express. I got this off of Amazon for £111, and I got this last week. Today on Amazon it is retailing at £112.25 on Amazon for a complete starter set. And now I literally checked it actually just before I came online, and I've had it for about a week, and I have to say, as soon as I opened it, it just felt right. It felt right because I could just have it in my hand like that, and I had the other hand free to do whatever. The functions that are laid out are very simplistic, so you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work it out. It's very easy to use. Richard did mention actually on his, and I'll mention it as well because, excuse me, it has happened to me before, that when you start her up, yeah, exactly right, Dave. So when you start her up, it does come up with this weird feature where it says loco free, but it's got a speed of 12 miles an hour. And I'm not quite sure why that is, but it does. But it doesn't seem to affect, I haven't had any negative feedback from the trains with it. There are two important features that have drawn me to my next controller. One of the main things I wanted out of my next controller is, I don't know if it shows up on here, it's got a speed function. It tells you how fast the trains are running. And thank you, Gary, for that. And that's what I wanted. I wanted actually a controller that will tell me the speed. And the reason for that is because I'm planning to actually get these decoders scaled down to scale speed. And so if it says 10 miles an hour on here, the loco that I'm running is actually running 10 miles an hour. And you can do that using various components, which that will be another video. So it was quite important for me to have the speed, because then you had a rough idea of whereabouts in the speed range the train was at. Whereas with the Hornby, you've just had this semicircle and these lines, and you weren't quite sure whether or not it was finishing or what. So that's one of the reasons. Another useful function that I found fantastic on this was there's a little button in the corner called a speed step button. And that step button will toggle how many steps there are. It currently says it's 128. That's 14. And I think that says, does that say 28? That says 28. Now I have it on 128. And the reason why I have it on 128 is because I find that I have better control over the locomotives under this 128 speed step. And I'm going to see if my 156 can demonstrate this for you. So we're currently, let me see if it's on the loco, let's see if it's on the recall. Right, so that's the recall button. I don't know, and if I press it, it will scroll through all the ones that it can go back through, and I'm looking for 156, which is that one. Let's see if it comes towards what I can remember. You can probably hear it coming. So apparently it's doing 11 miles an hour. And you see how it's coming into shot now. You see how it's coming out of crawl. I'm going to shut it down. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the speed step to, well, we could say 28 or 14, it doesn't really make a difference, but if we do a 14, because then we can exaggerate it. Then we go to recall, and I'll recall 156. Scott, I believe you can, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't done much in the way of CVs. Actually, Gary is online, he might be able to tell us. whether or not you can read CVs and stuff through the Prodigy Express and the Advanced. So let's see now that. Right, okay, you just press F3. Right, so that, let me just change it. Now that was, you can see it's running faster and it's doing 4 miles an hour. So that's the difference between changing the speed steps. Yeah, I've just noticed that, Cheeky Tech. You did put up a video tonight. I haven't actually got round to watching that, so I'll be watching that later on tonight or tomorrow. So that just shows you the difference that changing the speed steps can make. So we'll do that again. So we'll recall that back to 156. Right, let's change the direction first. So it's now back at 11 miles an hour. Or, sorry, it's just stalled on the point. It has been doing that. So you'll see it's doing 11 miles an hour. And it's crawling along. And that seems like a fair enough sort of 11 miles an hour. So just by changing the speed steps, you've got a better control over the locomotive. And I find that a really useful feature. Now I have to say, I have to be honest, I haven't actually made the full use out of the functionality out of this because, well, basically I haven't really had it long enough to really test it out proper. But my first impressions of this is definitely I'm much happier with this than I was with my Elite. Now, Richard also pointed out in his video that yeah, I mean, all locos are different. I think it's also because these older ones, because I guess you're 91. I don't know, is your 91 Richard still running an old Ringfield motor? Because this one's got an old Ringfield motor in it, so I guess they would respond differently. So Richard had put also on his video earlier about this stop button, and he was saying it's not really as good as the one on the Hornby. And again, I have to agree with him with that. You got that big red chunky button there, but there is a simple way around this. I believe there is anyway. So the simple way around it, I find, is before whatever controller, it doesn't matter whether it's a Prodigy or an Elite or whatever, but let's just grab the Elite again because that's probably the easiest. So on this one, on the Elite, you just put the 2 cables straight in there. That's what you do, straight to, and then you've got power straight to the track. Now, if on one of those wires you split it and put a simple on-off switch, it is basically creating a master switch for your layout. And you just shut the power down from the switch. So you can basically run switches around you if you've got quite a big layout. Yeah, well, like I said, so so for example, if you've put this Elite or whatever controller you have at one end of the layout and something goes wrong at the other end of the layout, and if you've installed a simple on-off switch before it gets to the actual controller, then you can shut it down there and then. A friend of mine's done it, Nigel over at Cotton End. He's done it. He's got like almost like one of those big electrical sockets with just a big master on-off switch, and that basically, as soon as he does that, it literally kills everything. The lights, it kills the power to the track, it kills the controller, it kills everything. So it just stops straight away. So, you know, if you're kind of worried, yeah, it is. I agree with you, Richard. I think 2 seconds is a long time in emergency. But like I said, I've got some simple switches here, and you can see. So it's just like a simple on-off switch, and you can place these switches around your layout, and basically one end of that goes to your controller, the other end goes back to the track, and you only need to do this on one cable. And basically what you're doing is you're turning off the power before it gets to you're basically isolating it, is really what you're doing. And you can have a number of these dotted around the layout if you've got a big layout, so it doesn't matter where you are in your layout, you're never too far away from an emergency stop button, that if anything goes wrong when you're not really paying attention, that you're not too far away from actually switching off the layout and killing the power. I'm yet to test this though, but I know it will work. But like I said, it is something that I know works because yeah, I mean, I just think, to be honest with you, that's kind of like a safety feature, to be honest with you. But overall, with the Prodigy, I'm really, really, really happy with it. And like I said, the reason why I didn't go for the NCE was purely, it wasn't because I didn't think it was, because I actually thought it was a good controller, but the fact was it was more expensive. And also, it could take it could take more power, and those features weren't really necessarily needed for my requirements on here. The only thing I have to say about the Prodigy Express, and I must say it so you guys know, is yeah, but if you've got a switch between the main track power, the main two power feeds, the main two feeds that come from that to your controller, and you put a switch in between them, that will kill the power before it gets to the controller. This was my old Vector that I showed you, my old DC controller, and I'm still going to be using this on Ringwood South. And the reason being is that the actual Prodigy Express doesn't have accessory output. You might do it through the box that's behind that it connects to, but the actual box itself has got just the two wires for the program. For there's a main for the main track, and there's for something else. I can't remember what it is now. There's four. I can't remember what it is now, and but it's not really for accessories. Although there is a boost for the internet, a boost. So I think you can put another box attached to it, so you can actually have another handheld unit attached to it, so you can link them up. But there isn't a specific accessory auxiliary on the back of that. But that's fine with me. It might be a deal breaker to some, but to me it's not, because I like to try and keep the auxiliary and the power to the track separate. So what I'm going to be using is that this particular unit has actually got a built-in CDU, and so I can run all the point work off of this. So I don't have any problems with that, and there's also an accessory, so I can actually run the lights off of this one as well. So the Prodigy will actually be used exclusively to literally power the trains and power the track, whereas this will be used to run the lighting or any lighting on the layout, and also be used to run the points. So I'm not particularly bothered that I haven't got a direct accessory auxiliary port on the back of the Prodigy. But again, it is designed for the beginner. It is designed for somebody who's new to DCC, and I guess the Prodigy Advance would probably, in fact, I know it has, because that's what it says on the actual Gauge Masters page, that it does come with more features and things. And so I suspect that stuff like being able to control your point work and everything like that through your controller, you could do that, whereas you can't with the Prodigy Express. There's no button functionality on the actual Express to say that, now I'm looking at it, there isn't anything here. So you can't actually switch points from here, which to me, it doesn't bother me. I don't mind that. It wasn't a deal breaker for me, but for some that might be the case. And you could call that a downside. But for me, like I said, I will run all the point work and lighting separately off of this unit, and then that will still have some good valuable use. And it was a very good controller on my DC Behringer layout. It really was. I really liked it. So I don't know if anyone's got any sort of questions or anything they want to ask or anything like that. I hope it has been informative, because it's just to try and give people a bit of advice, or not necessarily advice, but I just hope that people find it useful. I'm going to show you something else now. It is train related, However, it's not a controller. I've got a new toy. Anyone want to see? No? No one wants to see. Yeah, I suspected that, Gary. You know, it's I should, because I mean, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for, and I think the Prodigy Express, for the money that you pay for it, I don't think you can go too far wrong. A complete package for £112, you know, I don't think you can really argue with that, to be honest with you. So something a little bit quirky, a little bit different. Some of you may like it, some of you may not. Right, I'm actually still getting it out. Right, I can't put it on the track because I need to get a chip for it. It's very quirky. It's very different to what I'm used to. Right, here we go. Let's see if we can show it to you. This is known as a Class 14, also known as a teddy bear. I can't put it on the track at the moment. I don't know why they call it a teddy bear, but so this is going for my green period that I'm going through. I'm going through a bit of a green period. And it's so different, quirky, and me being me, I loved it. And I sold my blue shunter, my blue 08, so I needed to get another one because my blue one was not DCC ready, and so it had to be hardwired. So rather than have the hassle of hardwiring it, I thought I would basically get shot of it and get a different one. And like I said, I didn't want to get another 08. I wanted to try something a bit different, and I always quite liked the quirkiness of this little loco. So I'll be using that. Do you think? Gary looks like a teddy? Maybe. Right. Okay, I'm just going to put this back, and then I've got something else to show you if anyone's interested. I was doing some scratch building, and I had quite a bit of interest in it. So I was wondering if anyone wanted to sort of have a look at that, because some of you were sort of asking me about it, and right, give me a second whilst I sort myself out. The story of my life, sort myself out. Now, I haven't got that. I'm just trying to see if I had the magazine to hand so I can show you. Does everyone remember the picture I put up? That I sort of said, oh look, this is what I was kind of aiming for. I wonder if it's here. Hang on a bit. Aha! Bingo! Right, we have a light bulb moment, everybody. Right, so let's see if we can show you guys what I was aiming for. Right. I was aiming for this building. There's a building here. This building here. Is everyone all right with that? Right, so that was a building I was aiming for. Something like that. So this is what I've scratch built so far. Let's bring it over here. So this is my scratch build. So that's going to be the kind of water tower bit on the top there. And as you can probably, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see the plasticard. I haven't finished it yet by any stretch of the imagination. Thank you. I haven't done anything to the inside yet. It's because that's my next job. I've got to do that. That's my next bit. But this is where we're at so far. I have to say, this stuff is so easy to work with. This plasticard, it really is. It's fantastic. I have used the coloured one before. Basically, I'm going to be painting it in the same sort of similar style as I did over at Behringer, using the same techniques, and hopefully it will work on this one. This one might be take 2 coats because it's white. On the ones that I was using before, the plasticard was already kind of painted was already in a kind of brick colour. Whereas this, I may have to do one coat and then do another coat so I can do the weathering effects directly at the same time. And it's been a really enjoyable project. In fact, that pack of vari-girders didn't quite finish the job. I was short by about a few bits and pieces. Luckily, I kept some bits and pieces from my last layout, and I had like a little strip left over, and that was enough to complete the task without me having to spend another 585 and buy another piece. But that's pretty much what this building's going to be about. And so, like I said, I've still got the inside to do. It looks less like a shoebox now, so that's good. I can put lighting in it. I have done in a lot of my other buildings, but I'm not sure yet because I'm not really too sure how I'm going. I haven't really sort of thought too much on the building or the layout in that sense of because that seems quite advanced. That seems quite a long way away. I mean, I'm still trying to configure things together, and as you can see where my 156 is, the track actually goes all the way down to the end now, and I readjusted the track work down that end so I can fit this building in. So I've now got a final resting place for this building. So let me just put that back without trying to kill myself. So that will kind of go down there at the end. So I think I really enjoy scratch building, I have to say. It's kind of one of my favourite things I enjoy doing a lot. And I know there might be one or two people who echo the sentiment, because the reason for me scratch building, and you guys who've been with me since back in the day in Behringer will know that I originally built my B&Q and it was completely out of scale. Right, what's the building going to be used for? Well, basically it's used as a coaling tower, a water tower and a coaling stage all in one building. And on one side you basically bring in the coal wagons, and then on the other road there'll be a loco waiting to receive the coal, and then you just shove it from one side to the other basically. And then the water tower is on the top, and then that will then feed all the cranes that are maybe dotted around the end of the layout. So that's what that is. I wasn't quite sure how to tackle it, and I come across this picture and I thought, yeah, I want some of that, so I can make it myself. So I did. So it's a tip for scratch building for those of you who are interested. I'm not going to claim to be the best at it, not by any stretch of the imagination. If you're not sure about scale when scratch building, don't worry about it, because a good way to kind of get your buildings to scale and get everything to scale is use your existing buildings. If you've got existing buildings on your layout, you can just measure the windows, measure the height of the walls, and just go by there. And you don't need to be. I mean, in the beginning when I first started doing it, I was extremely daunted by it, and it was my original building was over scale, but I learned actually the easiest way to do it is let the other manufacturers do the work. Hornby, Batman, use their buildings in terms of getting their measurements. Buildings with doors, you can measure their doors and see how big their doors are and replicate that. And using card from Hobbycraft is like, it cost me £3 for a massive sheet, and I can make 2 or 3 buildings out of that depending on what sort of buildings you're making. So, have a go before. I mean, you don't necessarily have to buy all the trimmings, all the windows, or the stonework with a plastic card. You could just get a card, just make a simple building just to see how you get on with it. And then what's the worst that can happen? Okay, you've lost £3. £3 is what? Probably not even a coffee at one of the big retailers or anything like that. So it is worth having a go. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean, for me, Gary, I mean, the way I find it easiest to do is I use my existing buildings to help me guide me, and also if you look, hello Alan, welcome to the stream. Also, if you could look on some of the, if you see like for example my warehouse kit, I wanted to get the there were Skytrack systems, and they've some of them actually put yeah, yeah. Well, I've got loads. That's what I did as well. Dandy Nick. Yeah, I used some Metcalf buildings. They're also a good way of scaling your windows, totally. And but also, like I said, if you go to certain websites and you look at their buildings and you like to look at them, and maybe they're too expensive for you, or you think you can do a better job, sometimes they actually put the measurements. If you look in your specifications, that sometimes they put the dimensions of the building or the footprint, so you have a rough idea of what it is. And also another tip. Let me just put this away. Another tip for scale is use your magazines, because what's helped me is, for example, sometimes you can just by looking at a picture, it can sometimes tell you how big a building is, because they might have a locomotive put right next to it, and then you can sort of judge the length based on the picture of the locomotive being next to it. So you know that the building's no longer than the locomotive, or the same length as the locomotive. So then that gives you a rough idea of what how big the building is, or how tall it is. Maybe look at the picture and you see the height between the wagon and the top there, and that sometimes gives you, you know, an idea of how tall the building is. And so if you just sort of take and study some of the pictures, sometimes they can give you clues. Oh, right, okay. So yeah, there's always. I mean, I just say just give it. You know, it's fun. I mean, to me, it's like I like scratch building, and I like it when people have got individual pieces on their layout, because I think it makes a layout stand out. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got plenty of Bachmann buildings, and I've got 2 Hornby engine sheds and stuff. Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with Metcalf buildings at all. I mean, again, it goes back to what we said right at the beginning, that you know, it's all down to personal choice. Some people like card kits, other people prefer resin buildings. I'm not really a huge fan of card kits per se, although essentially I guess you could call that a card kit, but I've actually clad it in plastic card. But I like it either. I just like the buildings to look. I just find that with card, it's just never quite the same. But again, that's just my own personal view. Like I said, I'm not disrespecting anybody who uses card kits, because they're fantastic. But to be honest with you, I actually give you guys quite a lot of credit, because you've got to have a lot of patience to put some of those kits together. So anyway, folks, we've been going on for probably about 50 minutes now, and I wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody for tuning in and for watching. I hope that you've all got something out of it. Thank you, Kevin, for my ballast. Yeah, I do like my ballast train, and I've got the Freightliner HIAs, which I'm going to be using as well. I've got my JCB on the way. You like both what, Dandy Nick, both types of buildings? I mean, it's like I said, it is horses for courses at the end of the day. You know, and also it's also dependent on budget and what you like and what you can find. You know, there's no right or wrong to railway modelling. You know, I've always said personally, there's always something to learn from other people's layouts, whether it's an N gauge layout and double O gauge, whether it's American, whether it's British, whether it's it doesn't matter. There's always something to learn from other people's layouts. Which one are they bringing out? Alan, which 66 are they bringing out? Because I've actually I'll be honest, I haven't spent any money yet, but I've just pre-ordered. I don't know if you guys have heard, but oh, I love 66s in general. Yeah, I do. Um, I've just pre-ordered the new Hornby Class 800 Paddington Bear livery. And I've actually had the privilege of actually seeing that. And so I've pre-ordered the Paddington Bear one, because I was always a bit of a Paddington Bear fan when I was younger, and I liked it. So many moons ago, I might add. And anyway, so we're gonna we're gonna wrap it up. I could talk to you guys for ages, but we really must stop now. So anyway, thank you so much for joining the stream. I hope you've all got something out of it, and I hope you found it useful. And I'm going to Portsmouth tomorrow. I'm still planning on going, so if anyone's down there, then feel free to say hello. And then there's Aylesbury Relics at the end of the month as well, which I'm hoping to go to as well. So I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you got something out of it. And until the next time, goodbye from Ringwood South. And I really, really do hope you've had some fun, because I've actually enjoyed really talking to you guys. Oh, the other thing is, can I just ask before you go, have any of you guys experienced problems with YouTube and live streams? Because I've noticed that some of my live streams that I've put up in the past have gone walkabout, and I have no idea why. And I don't know if any of you guys have had any issues with doing live streams. So, yeah, that Paddington Bell on the doors, Neptune Hill, was just brilliant. When I saw it, I've actually got the video. If you haven't seen it, on my Didcot Parkway video that I did. Bye from Ringwood South, and until the next time, take care, everybody. Bye bye.